Alright guys, it's time for me to get serious about actually recording some videos with you here. The first couple of weeks were fairly light, just getting acquainted with what this class is. I know it's especially that first week was a little bit of a short week, but this week we actually have some real content that I want you guys to engage with, that I want to talk about in week 3. We're really going to get rolling and actually start to work on these projects. So I want to talk about what we're doing, what these projects are, so that you have hopefully a better understanding if you're not kind of getting what it is that we're trying to do here. So the interactive media design course is really about looking a little bit more at new media, how people actually work with new media. And new media is just kind of a relative term because new media changes all the time. We're going to look at this in somewhat of a classic context. I mean, some of the time we're actually just going to be looking at, basic websites, websites that are, kind of old technology but still are a good example. There's lots of good examples in, classic websites and about how we make websites easier for people. And then we're going to hopefully be looking at what we really want to get to is looking at new technology and how people are leveraging gestures and things to make the user experience richer. So even things like augmented reality and virtual reality. And hang on just one second, I have a cat who's being mean to another cat. Knock it off. Sorry about that. My male cat likes to be mean and dominant to my female cat sometimes. Alright. So basically, when we're talking about usability and user experience, so what we're talking about is like, what is it that our product needs to do? How usable is it? How easy is it to use? Fairly basic concept and idea. And then the user experience, the user interface, are how we make it usable. So we always want to be thinking about how people are going to interact with things that we create or that we're working on. Again, I know that this is in the context of most of you don't have coding experience, and we're not coding in this class. This is I used to teach this class in Adobe Flash, and we would actually build some things and do some action scripting, but it's a little bit of a heavier lift, and really, actually, in my opinion, usability, as far as like from an inspirational standpoint, it's actually more difficult in the post-Flash age, and we kind of lost a lot of creativity there. There were some great products when we were using Flash, but Flash wasn't really a great product for mobile. Adobe couldn't figure out how to leverage that, and so Flash died. So that's what it is. So let's talk a little bit. I'll just kind of go through what we have in the content for this week. I want to talk about the usability heuristics really quickly, and just why they're important. And it's really pretty basic. I'm not going to read through all of this. I'm just going to give some quick, basic examples of each of a few of them as I go through, because some of them I think are fairly easy for you guys to understand, and there is another video in there for you to watch. So usability heuristics is just, some standards that have been developed over time as to some things that we need to watch for that will make the experience easier for users. That's what I wanted. My music got too loud. I'm probably going to get dinged on copyright for that on YouTube now. Alright, so let's talk a couple of things here. So Visibility of system status. This is actually a really easy one, but if you're new to interactive design, you wouldn't think of it necessarily. And that's really what this is. It's not that these are terribly complicated concepts so much as that, like, when you're starting out in designing for interaction, how the heck do you even know what to look for and what to have included in a product? So visibility of system status is really simple. It's like, where is the user in your product? Well, is the product doing what your user wants it to do? Is it functioning? Okay, and there's all kinds of really easy ways that we do this. Things like breadcrumbs, which is it's old school, but like on a website it'll say, basically give you a little list, a path. Basically, this is where you exist at our site. And that's actually a pretty old school example, and lots of websites don't even do that anymore. They have other ways of indicating system status, but it just helps with navigation. So where are you in the information architecture of a particular website or application? But a better example is something like when I actually did a little video that you're going to see here, and I used Adobe Illustrator Draw, and I had the app communicate from my phone to my computer. And when it was actually trying to communicate through Creative Cloud, it was giving me, that basic little spinning circle saying, hey, I'm doing something. You pushed a button and nothing happened right away, but you know that I'm doing something because I'm giving you the little spinny circle. Okay, so just little simple things like that. So that's visibility of system status. When we are making the user wait, this again an example, how are we communicating to them that something happened? Like if we're loading something, we would actually give them a visible indication of like, oh, this is where you're at. This is how you're doing. I use Dropbox. We talk about Dropbox in some of my other classes because file management is always an issue. Some of you guys are in digital photography with me, and so we did talk about Dropbox just recently. I keep on looking at the LCD and not the camera. That's probably gonna. I gotta get better at this. I'm not. Wow. I mean, really? Come on. Oh, anyway, Dropbox. Dropbox always gives us visibility of system status. It tells us every time a new file is uploaded. It tells me. I get a little notification saying, Katie uploaded a file, because I share my Dropbox. That's one of the great things with Dropbox is that you can link to people. So for some of the work that I do, that's how I know that a file has come to me that I can now take the next step and work on that thing, is that Dropbox tells me, hey, Katie uploaded that PDF, and now I can take that PDF and I can manipulate it the way I need to do it, and I can put it on issue so that people can see that we make that public. The other thing Dropbox does is it gives us little percentage indications. I meant to go quick on this, and I'm so bad at making quick videos. I am. Let's see here. Matching between the system and the real world. So basically doing things in a way that people like, that will make sense to people. And this also has to do with mapping, which is another heuristic. And when I talk about mapping, so let's talk about, matching the system and the real world. Using language that people understand. Calling whoever your customer is, you want to do things so that it makes sense to your customer. They don't need to understand what your organization's inner workings are. That's not the point. You don't want to. You shouldn't have to like educate your user on. Okay, well, before you can do business with us and buy a product from us, we need you to understand all the inner workings of our organization. No, that doesn't work. A good example with Wyoming Department of Transportation is that we have something called driver services, and in other areas of the country they have everybody calls it the DMV. The DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, it does different things in different states. Our driver services, you just get your license there. That's all you get there. So people will call the Department of Transportation and ask for the DMV. Well, I don't correct them and say driver services. They don't need to know. They don't care that we call it something different. They just want their license. Or I ask them, Ask them what it is that they're looking for, because maybe they don't actually want what we. I'm about to have a problem with the cat here. She's gonna knock stuff off my desk. We don't want. They don't want a driver's license. They want their license plates renewal. Well, that's not actually driver services. That's through the county. So it's important to talk to people in terms that they understand. Don't make the mistake of trying to force them into your own terminology. Mapping, I'll go ahead and talk about that now too. Mapping is just making things match, okay? And the example I always think is the easiest, that I enjoy them, but I think is the simplest, is like a stove. So you're using a stove and you have knobs that correspond to burners. Well, natural mapping is arranging the knobs in the same orientation as the burners. If the burners are not, it's like Cat Olympics over here. If the burners don't match the mapping of the knobs, your user is going to turn on the wrong burner. So you have to let them know somehow. So these are kind of things that are when we talk about heuristics. Let's see here. There are also some things that we do that are really not terribly inspirational. They're more just, we want to make sure things function the way people expect them to function. And this is under consistency and standards, and even what we call de facto standards. De facto standards meaning like, they just kind of happened, and now that's how people expect those things to work, to function, and so we have to design it that way. Like, hyperlinks, for the most part, typically they're blue and they're underlined. We don't necessarily like it, but if we do it in a different way, people might not understand that it's actually a hyperlink. Okay? All right. Let's see. Aesthetic and minimalist design. I'm not going through everything here. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, before I get to that. Recognition rather than recall. Recognition rather than recall. This kind of goes with matching the real world and just making it easier for people. Make things easy for them to understand. They like a home button. What does a home button look like? There's usually a couple of things that a home button would look like. One, it's either the logo of your product, people understand that, or it's a little house. Okay, that's recognition rather than recall. We want to be creative and we want to do things differently, but the mistake is that we can actually then make it harder to use it if we're trying to be innovative or do something different. We're just going to confuse people. So this is kind of related to de facto consistencies and standards as well. But we want to make things as easy as possible. Aesthetic minimalist design. This is, if you've had computer graphics with me, we've talked about this. If you take digital photography with me, we talk about this. One of my favorite sayings is, a good design is not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And that is so true, and probably never more true than in interaction design. Because if we've made something too complicated, so ornate, the user has no idea where to go. They don't know how to interact with a product. So it's really important to engage in very minimalist design. So really clean, simplicity is so important, very, very key. Error recovery, there's some good examples there, but just like, you want to make sure that when someone encounters an error with your product, that it's not, they can't recover. That it's like, oh, error, see you later, bye now. You make sure that you let them know that there's been an error. Make sure that if there is an error, that you've given them a way to recover from the error. I mean, there's lots of simple ways that you can do that. All right. And so that's the usability heuristics. I had to went a little bit longer than I intended. I apologize. I'm trying to keep these short. I know it, because I know you guys have really short attention spans. I don't know what these college students have short attention spans. I mean, I've been talking long enough that I need coffee, so yeah, I've been talking too long. And I'm still looking at the LCD and not the lens. Okay, so what you're doing this week, because this is more of a this is a project week, and this you know, this probably could feel a little bit overwhelming. So really, that's why, you know, it's like I want you to focus on the doing rather than a lot of reading. We're going to learn more about interaction design by just studying products and having discussions about products and how usable they are. So the two things I'm having you guys do in discussion as a way to help with that this week, and this is going to prepare us for your big assignment, which is next week, your first actual real assignment. So this week, the discussion is, I want you to have think of like 10 ideas for things that you think should exist in the world, an application or a product, something that you could design. And again, don't worry about coding. We're going to do everything prototyping, wireframing. You can use whatever software you want, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, whatever. A lot of this we're actually going to start out just paper and pencil. So it's not important. Don't worry about don't get caught up in okay, I think this is a really good idea, but I can't code this. Well, you know what? I can't code this either. My coding experience is, I have a master's degree in, it's web design and new media. That's what my master's is usability. I don't code all the time. I can code, but I don't code all the time. So, I can't code these products. But that's not the point. The point of this class is, how do you take on a project of this scale? How do you communicate to a team, this is what the product is going to need to be, this is how it should function, and hey, now you code guy, you go do this now. You get your team together, you're giving them the documentation so the team can work on this. Don't call him code guy. That's not nice. All right, code guy has a name. He's Jim. He's a really nice guy. He's got a family, kids. All right, so it might be easier as you tackle this, as you think about what product should exist in the world, and how do we again thinking about how unique it is, and there's lots of ways to study this. Okay. We're going to go through, we're going to actually vet these quite a bit, and you're going to pick one, and then we're going to go through the process of working on that product for the entire semester. So it's a good place to start with looking at applications that you like Adobe Illustrator Draw was a really fun one that I did a little video that I'll attach to this somewhere, probably right here. I'll probably edit it in right here. I'm not a good video editor, but maybe right here. Okay, so I wanted to try and show you, if I can do it here and keep it in focus, some examples of usability that I think are pretty fantastic. And not only is this, I think, a good example of usability for this class, but it's also some media tools and some potential prototyping tools for you guys to use in this class. So Adobe has a product called Adobe Draw that I'm trying to get myself acquainted with. And it's got some really great functionality. It works a lot like some of the other products, Photoshop and Illustrator, as far as drawing tools go, but obviously on mobile devices. And there's some really fun, there's some great functionality. So I've been playing around with, I'm getting kind of interested in lettering. It's kind of fun, and this is a tool that actually I feel like this does even a better job. That's not what I wanted. I want this one. A better job almost of giving us the ability to do lettering like this than using a mouse on a computer, because it's just more intuitive to use your hands. So there's a little chisel thing, a little chisel tip pen for making different kinds of letters. But some of the really cool parts are just how quickly and easily you can use it. So you can see here it's actually responding not only to the pressure sensitivity, how hard I push, but also angle of the brush, because it's a chisel tip. And it's got standard functionality you might expect, if I take two fingers and swipe, it actually will erase.
whatever I had just done. So if I decide that I just don't like what I'd done there, I can kind of go back. It's really easy to do. But I think that there's, some of the other functionality that's really cool is like, if you want to draw at a different angle, you can, use gestures to manipulate it. But really, when we talk about like, the usability, the functionality, one of the things that I was most excited about, I kind of, had a jaw drop moment when it happened. My wife is across the room and actually nodding and giggling at me as I do this, is that it's got this great functionality where you can actually push what you draw here to your computer, to the software. So this is Adobe Creative Cloud and it's all connected. I'm logged in as myself on the phone, and so I can actually tell it I want to send it to an Adobe desktop app, and it gives me options of Illustrator and Photoshop. I'm going to click on Illustrator. Now I'm going to try to get you focused on my computer while my computer receives. And it gave me system feedback and showed me that it was sending. And now, without me doing anything, it has now it launched Illustrator for me and brought that file in. And the great thing about this as well is this is actually vector graphics. So I can actually pull those apart and continue to manipulate those in Illustrator, which that was the jaw drop moment when I was just kind of playing around and clicked on open in Illustrator and then was completely dumbfounded that it worked like it did. So I can continue to manipulate it and play with this any way I see fit in Illustrator. Another program that I think could be useful to you guys, and this, obviously Adobe, you have to have a subscription. And I'm not sure if you guys can access this level of functionality just with your student account. You might be able to. So if you guys try it out, let me know if that works for you just through the student account, through the college that they provide, because I know you guys can just log in and the college has you guys kind of set up that way. But I'm not sure if it gives you basically a full account. But another app that I have is something called Paper that I really like. And this is actually kind of cool, like when we get into things like wireframing later in the semester, this could be a really fun application. Let me refocus again here. Apologize, I'm not terribly good at video. So one of the things I like about Paper is it's got like the little pen tool, and I can draw with nibs and things like that. The undo is a little bit different, and it's like a circle thing. I'm not going to mess with it. And you have pens, a pen like an ink pen nib, colored pencils, blenders, markers. But this also got this really cool tool, and this would be great for wireframing, where basically you draw the gesture of a shape, and it will actually recognize that you're trying to draw a shape and clean the shape up for you. So if I'm wireframing, I could like really quickly draw shapes to indicate. I didn't get that one for me, but we'll try it again. Oh, because I'm inside of another object. Well, I may have to play with it. But yeah, you can see here, as I draw shapes, it's actually kind of fixing the shapes. So when I'm overlapping, it's giving me a bit of a hard time with it, so not quite as useful as I'd hoped. But then again, on this one, depending on what kind of connectivity you have between your computer and your device, this one I can really easily share that to my computer just through AirDrop. So I sent it through AirDrop, give my laptop a second, and there it is. So this could be something that would be really useful for you guys when it comes to creating some of the products, things that we have for this class that we're going to create. Because like we've talked about, I don't actually require that you use any particular software. You can actually just use pen and paper for this. So really cool functionality. So I thought this was interesting. These were interesting both in terms of just great usability. I mean, they're super easy to use. They have great functionality, and then also just like these are just fantastic media tools for those of you who are studying. And you got a lot of people who are talking about studying because they want to be graphic designers. Well, these are great graphic design tools, and it would help with rapid prototyping and design work of all kinds.
Okay, so presumably I just edited in that video that I did with Adobe Illustrator Draw. So I want you to look at applications that you think are, they're great. They're easy to use. Some other examples, I know it's not like great new technology, but MailChimp has a great mobile app. I just discovered it, and I've been using MailChimp for years, and I'm like, how the hell did I not know about this? Maybe, yeah, I don't know if it wasn't there. Other ways that you can find other applications. I mean, you may have applications that you're using that are fantastic already, but search for applications. Do some research. That's, it's part of your homework. So, research presumably is, you could do a little bit. And then as you do that research, that might give you some ideas of like, what's something I might like to work on? And if you can come up with something practical, fantastic. If it's, if you just come up with something silly fun, that's fantastic too. I like silly fun ideas. I've had students do anything from developing their own photography website interface, which if you do something like that, I'm going to look for something innovative, like, okay, how is this different from like, any other website that you do? So I want you to look for some sort of unique feature, something different or new, and it doesn't have to be like brand new. I don't expect that you guys are actually going to like invent new usability, but just like something that is, beyond the average in usability design, okay? The example, and I'm going to use this during this class. I'm going to develop this during this class with you guys. So I've had this silly idea for a while about, because I teach digital photography as well, and I've sold and bought a house, houses in the last couple of years. I've done a lot of painting, and one of the things we do when we paint is if we want to match paint, we take a chip of paint to the hardware store and they put it under a spectrometer and they match the paint, which is great. That's fantastic. But I think we can do better. So my idea, and I'm going to actually develop this, the documentation for this during this class as an example to you guys. Hopefully I do a good job. I hope I don't fail the class. That would be really embarrassing. But I'm actually going to work on an application, and basically my idea is, what if the hardware store sent us a gray card and had us download an app to our phones? And then instead of having to take a paint chip and actually say, like, it's like, I just need to touch this up. I don't want to chip more paint off. What if I just take a picture of that gray card next to that paint? That gray card then should make it so that we can actually calibrate and get the right color of paint. So now I have the hardware store app on my phone. I took a picture of the gray card with the paint. I then send that to the hardware store. They match the paint for me. And hell, I don't even have to go there. Maybe they're going to ship it to me. Maybe it's going to be ready by the time I get there. I can pay with my credit card. There's all kinds of great stuff. Really basic, simple things like that. It's such a fun idea. And then I thought, if they did that, then now they have a picture of what the room looks like. They could suggest more paint colors. Like, hey, by the way, so that room, it looked like this if it was painted blue. In fact, I did this for my daughter this summer. I'm going to show you those photos at some point. She wanted to paint an accent wall in her house blue. I took photos, got my computer out, painted the walls blue in Photoshop, and said, hey, this is what I think this is going to look like. She thought, that's fantastic, let's do this. And we painted her living room with accent walls with really dark blue. But it looks good. At first I was like, dark blue, bad idea. This is you're going to come to a day when you're going to be unhappy you did this, but it actually looks fabulous. It's really fantastic. So you could do that with this app. So now not only are you helping people get the paint color that they want, now you're selling them paint. And then, oh, by the way, this is a trim color that would work really well. Oh, and here's some curtains that might look good with those paint colors. Oh, or in the market for a couch? Here's a couch in colors that would match these paints that you did. And you can put a visualization in there, like not only are you selling these products, you're showing them what it would look like because they took a picture of their room when they were loading the paint app and trying to order paint with you. It's actually, I think it could be a good idea. And when I first looked out there, nobody's doing it. And I can't believe that. I can't believe that this doesn't already exist. And that's exactly how I want you to think about different products that you could look for. If you think to yourself, I can't believe this doesn't exist. Why doesn't this exist? That's a good product. That's a project for you to work on and develop for this class. So looking at different products, and this is going to take us some time, and that's why this week the discussion is we're just brainstorming. Next week you're going to pick a project and start to think about it. It's okay if you don't land on the right project right away, because we're going to go through a series of rewrites on things as we work on these projects so that you have some time, an opportunity to correct or change direction if you'd like. All right? All right, a part of that also is we have in here is unique positioning. We're going to look at how do you know if it's a good product. So, like abstracts, and you're going to write an abstract next week for your project. So, like, what is the hook? What's the big idea? What's new and innovative about it? What arguments are you making? So you want to be like argue that you've got a good product. It's like, well, why is this a good idea? Gee, I don't know. It's because I think I'd like to make money doing somethings. Okay, well, that's not enough. Think about the user. How is this going to work for the user? If it doesn't work for the user, it doesn't work at all. Let's see here. So you think about audience and things like that, and then we'll actually write a unique positioning statement, and we'll rewrite that and draft it, and that's cool. Competitive comparative analysis. Does it exist? Like, one of the things I'm going to do, because I'm developing with you guys this semester, I'm going to go out there and be like, okay, what are the paint apps? Who has a paint app? What does the Home Depot app look like? What does the Lowe's app look like? Is there function? Am I wrong? Does this functionality exist? I don't think it does. I think that there's a market for this product. So we need to look at that. And then what is that? This is the big part. Why do we do comparative analysis? What does it reveal? It helps us understand a number of things. It helps us understand who our audience is, platforms that we should be on, the scope, pricing, strengths and weaknesses. Like, competitive comparative analysis. Let's talk about the difference of those two things. This actually just says competitive analysis. But I say competitive comparative analysis a lot. Competitive means what's in the market. Who are you competing with? Comparative is what's inspirational. It's not actually competing with you, but you can leverage that information and use that to inspire you. Like, okay, it's a paint app, but what if I go to the Nike website and design my own shoes? That's comparative. I'm not competing with Nike. I'm not making shoes. But I'll bet you Nike has a really great app. And I'll bet you there's all kinds of fun, cool stuff on that application or website that I can be, oh, man, what if my thing did that? So that's comparative analysis. You're looking for inspiration. So features and functionality you want to include, best practices, and then it helps us expand our knowledge and expertise. We always want to be looking at media products. If you want to be a writer, you write. If you want to be a photographer, you write and you read. If you want to be a photographer, you shoot, you look at other photographers' work. If you want to be a designer, you design, you look at other designers' work. This is the same thing, it's just a different context, okay? Alright, and that video went way too long. I'll maybe try to edit it down. Like I said, I'm not a great video editor. We'll see how this goes. I want to try to improve this semester on my video editing skills and, hopefully make this a better experience for you guys. Alright, so questions, comments, let me know. I'll try to have this, well, never mind. I'm gonna edit that out. I hope. Maybe. Sasha Quinn. Oh, see, now you guys are gonna behave like nothing happened. You're not hooligans. You're just nice, sweet kittens looking out the window. Yeah, sure. Make a liar out of me.